Hey guys, it's Spiderman PODFIC, and today we're going to be reading Green Through and Through by another fucking Robin. This is Chapter 5. Peter wakes up slowly, comforted by the knowledge that he is safe. The armchair he finds himself in is immensely soft, even through the slippery tarp that is currently being used as a blanket. Warm gray lights shine through the cracks in the window boards, piercing through the ambient darkness of the room. He wants nothing more than to snuggle back into restful sleep, but he's more clear-headed now, and with the clarity comes crushing hunger and blistering cold. He hasn't eaten since breakfast, the morning of a school trip. How long ago was that? It only feels like yesterday, but it could have been days. And days with his metabolism is your average Joe's equivalent of weeks. Okay, what had Ms. Romanoff taught him? Shelter, water, food, information. He has shelter. This bookshop was decently insulated, well protected, easily defendable, and has multiple exit points and entrances, most of which are only accessible to him, which is preferable. All in all, the perfect hideout until Mr. Stark finds him. And Tony will find him. He might not know how he got back to Earth, or how long it has been since he knew that there were at least 3 Stark Industries satellites in orbit, tracking his location, and that the Avengers are probably on their way over in a Queenjet right now. If not, it's entirely possible that Wade knows where Peter is, because he's just freaky like that, and has wrangled the Defenders and any of the stray vigilantes in the tri-state area into a probably stolen minivan and is driving through right now. He cringes, practically smelling Mr. Castle, Moon Knight, and Wade shoved into a car together and feels bad for imaginary Matt. He's getting off topic. The point is, he won't be staying here for long. But while he is here, he might as well get comfy. So, shelter, check. Next up, water. Okay, so the bookshop doesn't have running water or electricity, which was to be expected. Peter Luck had to kick in eventually. It does, however, have an only slightly rated cash register. He takes all change, just under 15, all in ones, because who steals ones? Peter, that's who. And stashes it on various parts of his body. He really needs to get out of his damp, sticky undergarments, since they're way too small on him and just generally a sensory nightmare. And it doesn't help that they're drastically lowering his body temperature, because spiders can't thermoregulate, and that which is just super convenient. A pang of pain reverberates through his chest, and he suddenly realizes that he doesn't know how long he's been in his binder, which feels about 3 sizes too small, and his ribs feel extremely bruised. In a fit of discomfort, he strips it off, throwing it over the cash register. Ideally, he would change fully into a warm, dry outfit, but he has nothing to change into, so he's gonna have to suck it up. He prods his ribs a couple times through his stolen t-shirt. They're a lot more pronounced than they have been in a long time, and they're all definitely bruised, and at least 2 are cracked. It used to fit him well. When had he grown? After a bit more poking, he leaves the bookshop through the roof. He follows his nose through the twisting turns and alleyways, chasing the scent of warm food that was wafting through the streets. It leads him to a well-maintained building with a sign displaying the words, Martha's House, Homeless Shelter, sponsored by the Wayne Foundation. He hovers near the doorway, unsure if he should enter or not. He's not homeless, or at least he won't be for a long time. What if by going in he takes their time and attention away from someone who actually needs it? He debates with himself, twirling his shirt hem between his fingers. He's pulled from his thoughts by a gentle chime of a bell. He looks up towards the source of the sound and sees a volunteer from the shelter holding the door open for him, gesturing for him to come inside. She looks to be around his age, maybe a bit older than him, with bright blue and purple hair and a scratchy but kind voice. The look on her face makes it abundantly clear that Peter has no choice but to follow her inside, much to his stomach's and the gold's relief. She guides him to the eating area, talking animatedly with her hands, all the while it kinda reminds him of Ned. The comparison makes his heart ache with odd phantom pain. Why does it hurt so much? He'd see Ned soon. He saw him like 2 days ago. So why does it feel like he's just been stabbed through the chest? Pushing those thoughts to the side, he belatedly realizes that they have stopped walking and the volunteer is looking at him expectantly. He probably missed a question or something. What is he supposed to do now? He nods and hopes to every deity that he can think of that it was a yes or no question. Thankfully, that seems to be the right response, and she gives him a small smile and moves away to break up a fight happening on the other side of the room, leaving him to get some food. Once he starts eating, he can't stop, barely pausing for breaths in between bites of potato and bread, desperately trying to fill the gnawing hole in his stomach. Before he knows it, his plate is clear and he remains hungry. Peter's used to hunger. Ever since he was bitten by that spider, he has been hungry. May tries her best to provide for him, but a nurse can only make so much money, and can only spend so much on food when there are bills and rent due. Many nights they would sit down for dinner and he would have to pretend like her plate wasn't empty, especially after Ben's death. If he ate too much, she didn't eat at all. So Peter's used to hunger. This isn't hunger. It's something new and sharp and painful. Like after the bite dialed up to 100. Starvation, he thinks. But it's hard to think with a gaping hole in your stomach. He stares down at his empty plate, biting at the inside of his cheeks in an attempt to quell the rolling void in his gut. The boy had been staring down at his plate for a while now. Harper was keeping an eye on him since he saw him standing outside the shelter. Not only did he look scared and alone, but he also looked like a perfect match of the boy that Babs had warned the whole Bat Clan about. Minus the clothes, but they didn't fit him properly and were probably stolen. Apparently, he managed to lose Nightwing and Hood, which is quite a feat. One that makes Harper insanely curious, but she doesn't want to scare him away, so she keeps her distance. She doesn't know what he's been through, probably a shit ton if he really is a zombie like everyone says. Even when he starts wolfing down food like he hasn't eaten in years, she keeps her distance, silently watching from afar. Her resolve crumbles when he starts silently crying over his empty plate. She swiftly moves from her perch over at the front desk and grabs a plate of food from Clara in the kitchen, who gives her a look that silently conveys, "Is he okay?" Food in hand, she weaves through the sea of hungry people and over to the boy's empty table. She knocks on the table twice to alert him to her presence. He flinches violently and his head shoots up, eyes wide and panicked. When he sees her face, he relaxes slightly, but his body is still wound up and tense, like a spring ready to flee. She tries to keep her own body language open and calm, not wanting to scare him. "You looked hungry, so I brought you some more food. Is that okay?" He stares up at her blankly, green eyes glazed in confusion, clearly not understanding, or perhaps not hearing her words. She gestures to the plate of food with her free hand, and then at him, hoping that her crude signs will convey her message. His eyes widen, almost comically, and he starts shaking his head. She holds up a hand, interrupting his refusal, and places a new plate in front of him, scooping up the old one and walking away so as not to give him a chance to argue. An Alfred-approved feeding tactic. After a couple minutes of debate, he starts eating his second plate, a lot slower this time, but with equal energy. He's trying to hide his hunger, and she wouldn't have caught it if he wasn't trained by the Batman, or if she hadn't picked up some skills being friends with Cass. Harper frowns to herself, wondering what kind of life the boy had led that would make him so good at hiding his hunger. Peter would be eternally grateful to the girl with the blue hair, even though the second helping barely curbed the growling of his stomach. She had given it to him in a selfless act of kindness, a beautifully rare thing. After he clears his second plate and no longer feels the sharp edge of his hunger, he becomes acutely aware of how dirty he is. Covered in dust from sleeping on the armchair, his bare feet encrusted with dry blood, dried tears staining his cheeks. When had he been crying? And just about every visible inch of him is filthy. It makes him want to itch his skin off. Because Martha's is just the best. They have a gender-neutral bathroom. They have gender-neutral showers and a changing room that he can use. He's used to changing in the girls' room at school, but he would rather not out himself to a bunch of strangers' things. It's big and empty. That was just after lunch, so that makes sense. He walks quickly past the sinks and mirrors, pointedly ignoring his reflection. He's always hated his reflection. He strips out of the stolen shorts and shirt, tossing them into an open locker, quickly followed by his underwear and cash. The water feels great over his bruised skin, cool and refreshing. He rubs himself raw, trying to get rid of all the blood and dirt. His hair is the worst. It has dried crunchy against his scalp and isn't budging against the water. In the end, he manages to finger comb about half of it before giving up and going back to scrubbing the rest of him. Once his skin is red and clean, well, as clean as he's going to get without a pressure washer, he turns off the water and dries himself off with a towel. Back in his slightly damp clothes, feeling a lot better than he has in days. Even though he isn't wearing his binder, he feels very at home in himself. Baggy shirt covering his chest. Peter prepares to leave the shelter. He has found his source of food and water, not bad for one day, and is more than happy to go back to the bookshop and crash after his shower. He makes his way over to the door, when there is suddenly a body blocking his path. It's the blue-haired girl. She's saying something, but the meaning of her words slipped through his mind like water through a sieve. Her tone sounds happy, if regretful, but before he can decipher her intent, she pushes the drawstring bag and pamphlet into his hand. Peter stares at the items. Surely this can't be for him. He looks back up at the girl, waiting for her to snatch them away, but she doesn't. She stares back at him before catching on to his confusion and gestures to his torso and feet. Overwhelming curiosity and confusion fills him as he opens the bag to reveal clothes. Clothes and shoes and a toothbrush, and it's too much. Too much for him. He can't have all this stuff. It's all too much. His eyes well with tears that threaten to fall. The girl seems at a loss for how to comfort him and leads him over to a bench. They sit down and Peter gets his breathing under control. She points to a spot on the pamphlet where there is a map specifically for a spot labeled Gotham Library. over and over. It seems really important. It is important to her, so it's important to him. He will go. He looks up at her eyes, welling back the tears in his own. He has thousands of words that he wants to say. He needs to tell her. He needs her to understand how much this means to him. But he can't formulate words. Can't force them from his throat. It feels like he is lifting a city when he manages to say, "Thank you." It's barely more than a hoarse whisper, and it feels like swallowing 1,000 needles, but it's all worth it to show her his gratitude. She's about to reply, but he's already gone out of the shelter, back into the city, back into Gotham. Alright guys, and that is the end of chapter 5 of Green Through and Through by Another Fucking Robin. I hope you guys liked it, and I'll see you in the next chapter.